Welcome back to our Trimble FieldLink training series. Today we're diving into the compatible file types you can import into FieldLink. Whether you're working with point files or model files, knowing the right file types can streamline your workflow. So let's dive right in. First, let's break down the two main categories of files in FieldLink: point files and model files. Point files contain coordinate data, like northings, eastings, and elevations. These are used to define specific locations, such as control points on our project, or points that we need to lay out. These might be mechanical equipment hangers, or corners that you need to lay out to pour your footers. Model files, on the other hand, are design files that represent 2D or 3D structures. Think your typical building plans. These might be PDFs or drawing files, or they could be topographical files for earth moving. We'll be using these models to create points that we can lay out within FieldLink. Now, let's go through the file types FieldLink supports and sort them into these two columns. We'll cover each at a high level to give you a clear picture. Starting with point files, we have CSV and TXT files. These are comma-delimited text files that store point coordinates like XYZ or northing easting elevation. These are perfect for importing control points or survey data. These are also industry standard files that you can typically import or export into any software that exists. Next, we have TFL and TFLX files. These are native FieldLink point files. TFL files are for older versions of FieldLink, while TFLX is used in version 6.3 and above. Not only do these store coordinates, but they also store laid out points with deviations based on the tolerances that you set when doing layout. They also store project data in a TFLX file. Next, we have CPX files. These are pattern files created in the pattern menu. If you watched our series in order, then you're familiar that we can use patterns across all of the projects on our data controller. These patterns are stored in the CPX file type. Finally, we have DC or data collector point files and XML point files. These are typically used in land surveying, and you may never see them on your construction project. However, if needed, we can import these point files. That's it for point files. Let's move on to our model files. First, we have DWG or DXF models. These are CAD formats from AutoCAD. They may be either 2D or 3D models for design and layout. Next, we have RVT and RFA files. These come from Revit, which are used for BIM models, with RVT being for projects and RFA for families within Revit. Next, we have NWD and NWC files, which come from Navisworks for 3D model coordination and clash detection. SKP and SKPI are SketchUp files, with SKP for models and SKPI for indexed versions, which are great for 3D backgrounds. Next, we have IFC, or Industry Foundation classes for building models, which is widely used in BIM workflows. Next up, we have a TRB or TrimBIM file type, which is Trimble's proprietary 3D file format. You may get this from Tekla, Trimble's structural steel and concrete modeling platform. Finally, we can import PDFs. PDFs are typically not the first choice. I'd prefer to have a CAD file, which is typically less messy. However, if we want to import a PDF, we can. We just need to know the scale factor. When we import into FieldLink, it will ask us for the scale, and we can use it from there. One important note, it must be a vectorized PDF, which means it originated from some sort of a CAD program. And that concludes all of the compatible file types with Trimble FieldLink as of version 2025.1.